Hello and welcome to The Ripple Impact, the podcast where we dive into those fascinating, unexpected ripples, those human stories that change everything. Today's guest is someone who I'm so looking forward to her sharing her journey with us and her expertise, Naomi Kent. Naomi's career spans continents and boardrooms, from board advisor to non-profit champion to coaching C-suite leaders. Naomi's worked with professionals who want to build a board career, and her life is built on the kind of ripples that we just love to explore, those quiet moments that rewired everything. So from moving to the USA to becoming a fierce advocate for resilience, purpose, and the power of relationships, her journey is packed with insights. So I'm really excited for you to join us today. Naomi, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks for having me. And what an entrance. I appreciate it.
You are most welcome. Can you give our listeners a little insight into your career today and what brought you to founding the Boardroom Company?
Yeah, of course. I've always been fascinated by people's careers, and I always have enjoyed seeing people succeed. I joined a company called BoardX, and I worked very closely with boards of directors and companies that surrounded them and companies that worked with them and helped recruit for them as well. After working with that company for about 12 years, I realized that I had a real passion for this board of director space and actually seeing a change and helping to build the next generation of boardroom leaders. So I ended up doing that. About 8 years ago, I started working one-to-one with people who wanted to join a board. And I use a lot of the insights that I learned back in 2002 to 2014, really understanding the full picture of the market. Serving on a board gives you a lot of background, a lot of information, but it doesn't give you that variety of information that you need to be able to help each person. And each board is different, right? So you have large boards, small boards, and not everyone is a good fit for all of those. So you have to be able to really pivot and help the individual, not just share insights that might be relevant for some people, but not others. Currently, I do a number of things. I also have a podcast and I interview people who have built a board career, and I have them share their insights. One of my mottos is it's no boring governance conversations, right? It's more around careers. Well, that's what excites me, right? It's the career part of it and building a career. So I also work with businesses that want to help some of their middle managers grow and get professional development that's kind of outside of the norm. So as you can imagine, in a large company, you probably get coaching and all these kinds of things. Yeah. I think a lot of people, they've run out of options. They've done the coaching, they've done the sales leadership, they've done all these things. And so actually learning and getting prepared to be on boards, whether it's community and civic boards and nonprofits or actual corporate boards and advisory boards of corporations, they find these types of courses really exciting. So I work with a number of different types of companies in all sorts of industries to really help them rise through the ranks and build their own careers.
Yeah, fantastic. I think what's amazing about when I talked to you was, yes, you're helping people get into board roles, but when I listen to you talk and I listen to your podcast and I hear you sharing your expertise, I'm like, I wish I knew that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, even at the stage of the career that I'm in, because I'm not in a board yet. But wow, if I'd have had that advice 10 years ago, I think I would have done things differently. So irrespective if our listeners are about to get a board role in a boardroom, looking to expand their portfolio, or really just starting out in their career out of university or college or school, I think these are life lessons and career lessons that everyone can take irrespective of level. So I'm really excited for you to share your nuggets of wisdom today.
I'll share a couple with you, actually. So
yeah, do.
You were a young professional looking to build your career and you're looking to get onto boards in the future. Here are a couple of things that you should think about. One is try and get leadership responsibility. Some people shy away from it, and it is tough. It's not easy to be a leader. It's not easy to manage people, but more leadership experience, the better. The second thing, you really want to manage a P&L. You want to manage not just a budget, like actual P&L. Having responsibility for the business is really important. And then another piece is really getting as much of a wider view of the business as possible. So not just looking at a specific part of the business and focusing there, but actually saying, yes, I'm in this division, but I understand a lot about what else is going on. And then anytime you can present to the board or be in a boardroom or serve on a non-profit board or do anything where it just builds your confidence and gets you the language that you need. Those would be a few things. And actually, if you chip away at that, and that doesn't happen overnight, right? Like that will take a long time for people if they're in their 20s or 30s and they're building their careers and even into 40s. But you do need to have a long-term goal for your career. I don't believe that you should just wake up every day and just go through the motions of going to work and getting paid and going home at the weekend and then having a drink and trying to forget it all. You should be thinking in a long term. So if you just do something small once a week that helps to build that, you'll actually see yourself get into C-suite roles. All of the things I've described are what get you into C-suite roles. They get you into board roles. So it's a knock-on effect.
Amazing. Nuggets of wisdom already. It's fantastic. Hopefully everyone's writing this down. We're already in it, but can we wind back a little bit? Can we go back to the beginning and what were the ripple moments for your journey? Because you've done quite a lot of different roles. You've moved around, you've moved countries, you've even done endurance sport. Tell us some of the ripple impact moments in your life and what led you down this path?
Yeah, I would say probably the biggest one was, so I'm originally from the UK. I actually went to boarding school in the UK for about 7 years. I went out and did some traveling. I went to the university in London for 4 years. And then I left. I had a few odd jobs for about a year. And then I landed at this company, Dex. So I was about 22, I think, when I joined. The ripple effect, what I like about it is that it's not a necessarily one big event that happens. It's actually all the little things that you do that lead up to that one big event. Because people will look at someone and go, oh, they're just lucky, oh, they're just somebody liked them. You don't see all the things that you were doing beforehand. I worked really hard in that company. I was always there early. I stayed late. I made sure the work got done. Sure, I made a mistake here and there. Naturally, everyone does. But I really put my heart and soul into this business. And so when the business decided to expand into the USA, I was really keen to go. I actually asked to go and then I was rejected the first time. And I thought, you know what? I really want to live in New York. This is where I want to be. I just kept pestering the leadership team to let me go. And then finally I went and I ended up in New York City at 28 years old. So that was a big move for me. It was something I never really thought I could ever do or dreamed of, but the opportunity presented itself and I just went after it.
Yeah, well, you say the opportunity presented itself and you said it was pestering, but to me that sounds like tenacity and resilience where you're going, I know what my goal is. I know I'm going after this. They might have rejected me once, but this is happening. What gives you that drive and that tenacity to just go for it?
I just knew it was right. Like I knew it was the right thing for me and I knew it was going to make me happy. I knew I didn't want to live. I love London, but I didn't want to live there long term, or at least I thought I was young enough to want to go and live in some other countries and experience that. So I'd actually already been on the lookout for where could I go next. But actually my career with them blossomed and I really enjoyed working with them. I didn't really want to leave the company. So I really enjoyed it. And it was the people. The people were great who were there. And there's a lot of people that are still there today. I would say, yes, it was definitely when you really want something, I think you can stop at nothing. You can make these things happen. I think even the big lofty goals of getting onto a board, which by the way, when you're in your 20s, you can't even see yourself at 50. But when you get to 45, and you've done nothing to build your board career, that's when you start to think, oh, how am I going to get this done? Some things you have to make happen really fast. Others, if you really work at it and chip away at it over the years, you'll get there. So we'll jump into some of this long distance racing that I do. I did an Ironman, which took me 13 hours.
Wow.
Now, everyone goes, oh, wow, 13 hours. And I go, actually, I don't think that was the most impressive thing. It was the 8 months of grueling daily training and sore muscles and headaches and dehydration and not eating right and trying to work out when I was going to work out because I had a trip. And that was the tough part. The one day of doing the actual event was like, well, yeah, I've just worked up to this. So I hope people, when they see people doing things and achieving something, not everyone wants to be an Ironman. I totally get that. But even if it's just like you wrote a book or you did a speech or, I don't know, you got a promotion, you got an extra $10 or £10 per hour and you're excited about that. You've got to realize it doesn't come just like that. It's something that grows and grows and you have to work on. So it is hard work, but it's so worth it. Everything that you achieve is worth it.
And you're talking there about the cumulative effect of invisible ripples, the things that people don't see, the graft in the background of the tenacity and the trying and the falling
Right.
down and the getting back up and the keep going. And as you said, that 8 months of training that, yes, accumulates in one day, but actually all of the ripple impact came from the training, not from the day itself. Because it's too late,
Exactly.
right? Once you get to the day.
It's the impact, exactly, of all the
Mm.
ripples, right? Exactly. It's kind of the reverse.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yep.
Wow. So talking about endurance sports, so not just long distance running, but scuba diving, Ironman's long distance. Tell us a little bit more about that.
I wanted to try skydiving. So I went to Miami and I did that. I wanted to do a bungee jump. I went to Canada and did that. Neither of those were that exciting. Well, it was very scary. So, I'm not like a no fear person. I absolutely have a lot of fear, but I've been scuba diving since I was really young. It's a very dangerous sport, as you can imagine. I mean, you have to be very safety conscious. Let me tell you what I've learned from all of these types of sports and activities that I've done. I think in life, you can cope a lot easier with anything in life when you set your bar really high, as in your pain threshold, right? Or your fear threshold. And so in life, if you don't push your fear threshold and your pain threshold higher and higher, the minute something comes in at work, or the minute some problem comes into your life, you're going to react to it in the wrong way. You're going to not know how to react to it. And so when you're under pressure, underwater, and something goes wrong, you immediately want to panic, but you know that the panic will kill you. Okay. Now, in a work situation, let's say there's a problem happening, you panic, probably not going to die, I hope.
Hopefully not.
But that panic is sending you into a frenzy and not allowing you to make good decisions. So you need to roll it back. You need to hold it back. So I've learned from diving how to just monitor my emotions and monitor the situation and figure out, is it a death situation or not?
Yeah.
And then in the long distance, it's all about, you've got to wake up at 5 a.m. You've got to do 2 trainings per day some days. You've got all your weekend is training. Your muscles hurt, your body hurts, your mind hurts, but you've got to get out there and do it again. And someone says to you, oh, can you go on a trip to Japan to go and see one of our clients? You're going to land, and then the meeting is in the afternoon. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to land after a long flight and then go to a meeting straight away. Well, yeah, that's going to seem pretty scary if you've never done it before. But if you've operated on 3 hours of sleep, you've been out, you've done your thing, you're on top of your game. You have to just not have the fear, because the fear sits inside you and you think, oh my gosh, now you're worrying about this Japan meeting, when really you should be getting yourself into a confident state, ready to have that meeting. And then you'll perform, right? So raise your fear bar, raise your pain threshold bar at all times in life. And by the way, it's doing everything, not sitting at home, watching TV and scrolling on your phone. It's getting out there, it's volunteering, it's doing things that make you uncomfortable, doing things that put a little bit of fear in you, right? And public speaking. There's one example, right? Somebody said to me, I'm really afraid to get up in front of a crowd. I said, everyone is at first. You just got to get up. It gets easier, right? Your bar.
Get scared and do it anyway.
Your bar gets higher the more you do it. That's my point. So that would be my advice, is things are not as scary as they seem. They're only scary the first time round. So get over that hurdle, and then everything else seems a lot easier in life. And actually, you'll be much happier.
Yeah, we mentioned the invisible ripples earlier. And sometimes in life, it's just putting your hand up for things that you're not necessarily comfortable for. But actually, that can lead to so many other things. When somebody asks, oh, can someone go to this thing? Or can someone present that? Or can someone just be the person that puts your hand up and volunteers for it and puts yourself forward, even if you're scared, because you never know what opportunity that's going to turn into. We talk a lot on the Ripple Impacts about these serendipitous moments that feel very serendipitous at the time, but if you actually take those opportunities with both hands and do something with it, you never know where that's going to lead to. And your analogy of the training, in 8 months' time, gosh only knows where you might be and what you might be doing from that one moment where you had the opportunity to grab it.
That's absolutely right. And I also think you'll look at something the first time and go, wow, that looks really difficult. And you might be tempted to say, I don't think I can do this. I would never say that. I would always just say, I can do it, get on with it, and just work it out. You can ask other people who have done it in the past. You can watch videos, you can search. Once you break these things down, that they're really not that scary. But back to the board conversation, if I were building my board career or thinking about building my board career, that would be another one. We're about to be acquired by someone. Hey, is it okay if I sit in on those negotiations? Hey, is it okay if I
Yes,
sit in on the
absolutely.
meeting? How are we integrating the business? I would love to learn about that. M&A is huge. Get involved, put your hand up. Who wants to come to the meeting with me? I
Yeah,
do, right? That was
absolutely.
always me.
Always put your hand up and get involved. And that area of being much more cross-functional in thinking rather than thinking about your role and how
Yeah.
you get involved in other parts of the business so you get that exposure. And one thing I did many moons ago, which at the time I thought, I don't think I'll be doing this, but sounds really cool. I'm going to go along. That'd be really interesting. Media training. Wow. I
Mhm.
mean, gosh, if you can get media training the earlier you can in your career, the better that's going to help you with presentations, with negotiation, with speaking, with presence, with confidence. And then ultimately, if you are getting to a C-suite level, the likelihood there'll be moments where you do need to talk in that time and in that under that pressure of media interview. And gosh, you need to be on your game if there's a journalist on the other end. So I would highly recommend people do media training if and when they get the opportunity to, because it is really fantastic.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like underrated skills or skills you didn't know you needed. I'll
Yeah.
tell you what mine is. When I was about, I'd say 17, I was at boarding school. One of the girls there said, "Oh, I'm going to do this typing class." This was back in 97 or 6,
Yeah.
right? So she said, "I'm going to do this typing class. Why don't you do it with me?" Because she was my friend. And I went, "I don't
Sure.
want to do that." I said, "I don't want to do typing class." She goes, "Oh, we'll do it together. Come on, it'd be fun." So I thought, all right, I just wanted to hang out with her. Anyway, they did the typing class where they taught you how to type without looking. So they put a piece of paper over your hand so you couldn't see and you had
Wow.
to type the words. Can I tell you, that's the biggest skill today. I can type an email in seconds. I can write something in seconds. It has sped up my
Oh, I
entire
bet it
day,
has. Yeah.
exponentially. Because sometimes I see people, they're typing like this, and
Yeah,
I'm like,
my dad does that.
yeah, how on earth would I have ever been able to get through my day if I was typing like this? So I'm there. It's all about it's skills, it's time. Time
Yeah.
is a big one. And so, like you said, how do you present well? And then
Mm.
how do you create shortcuts? I work with some younger people right out of college too as interns, and I watch them using systems. They are so fast. They're not hanging around. So
Oh, absolutely not.
speed up. We have to speed up in order to free up our day to do other things.
So when you moved to the US, that wasn't just a location shift, was it? That was a whole lifestyle shift. That was a
Yes.
complete career changing move for you. Tell us a bit more about that, because it's always one of those fascinating ones where people move country and move roles and move companies all at the same time.
Yeah, I really embraced it. I love the culture here. I love the country. I think it's a beautiful country. It's huge. I like the size. New York City was where I landed and it just blew me away. I fell in love with the city. After about 13 years, it took the energy out of me and I left. But I loved every minute of it. And it was such an amazing corporate career experience as well,
Mm.
because I was working alongside some amazing people. I love the experience. I also wanted to blend in as much as I could. So I've adopted a lot of American culture, but I still
Mm.
have my British culture as well. So I
Mm.
feel like I'm a little half and half, as they say. It was definitely a cultural shift, but one that I really embraced and I really enjoyed. Whenever you move to another country, there is an element of that. You have to assimilate into the culture of the country that you're in, and you have to also think about how can I leverage my differences. And I can do a lot of international work here,
Mm.
and that's good for some people in the USA, and then it's not for
Yeah.
others. You can't be everything to everyone. But I definitely encourage people that I meet who are immigrants and foreigners here.
Mm.
I say, find your niche, find where you are different, and how you can leverage that to make business, do business, whatever it may be.
That's really good. So you've worked with so many senior leaders at pivotal points in their career. Can you tell us something that's really stood out to you along that journey and watching people progress into board roles and what you've learned and what you'd share with others?
I'll give you some insights on what I see from C-suite executives. I don't see a victim mentality. So they don't try to blame anybody for some of the mistakes that have happened. They take it on themselves or they just brush it off and move on. So the
Yeah.
victim mentality does not exist. And if anyone's thinking, what is the victim mentality? It's basically like, I can't do this because of this. We almost have
Mm,
an excuse for why something can't be done before you've even tried to do it. With people who want to get onto boards, it's things like, oh, I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm male, I'm female. They've got an excuse.
mm,
I've never been a CFO. I hear that one all the time. But that victim mentality doesn't exist with C-suite executives. They're very positive. They like to be challenged. They have a lot of resilience. They have not always been successful. That's another myth. You see someone in a CEO role and you think, wow, they are so successful. They're so much better than
yeah.
me. No, they fell down, they got knocked down, they got backstabbed, they got sued, they got all of these things have happened to them. They've just got back up and they've brushed it off. They don't bring it with them. Then those types of people that use it as a way to prevent them from doing other things in life. They actually use it to make them be better. They're always good with people. They are good at leading. They're good at communicating. They are clear and concise. They don't waffle.
Yeah.
And then people who are on boards tend to be very good communicators. They tend to be able to summarize things. This is maybe a myth. People think that you have to use big words in order to
Mm,
appear like you're intelligent. And actually, I think it's the opposite. You want to be able to summarize and explain things that just make it very easy for everyone to understand. It makes it much clearer to say it once than to say it
yeah.
3 times. Board members are also humble. So they're not, let me tell you about me and my
Mm,
achievements. They tend to be the types of people that are a little bit underground. They don't necessarily need to be shouting about all the things that they've ever done. It's not important to them. And then they respect people. So you'll see even someone they don't get along with, if they're on a board with them, they will still be respectful,
yeah.
right, of others that are there because they're there for a reason. You might not agree with them all the time, but they're there for a reason. So there's definitely a lot of attributes and qualities I see among these very senior level people. And it's on my website. There's a whole list of attributes. You can actually read those. And if you're younger or you're growing in your career, you can
Mm,
kind of, how can I build these? And is there a time when I'm not this and why? Or how can I become a better leader? So
yeah.
hopefully that's helpful.
Oh, it is. It is. And I think it's interesting because what I would personally hope in a board that actually it's very diverse. It's very cognitively diverse in the thinking across the different functions and what's brought in into that forum. So that ways of working that you described is really critical in a space like that. And especially when you're dealing with such big decisions and especially when it comes to risk and governance in particular. That's really
Mhm.
interesting. And you
It
talk
is.
about the values that you mentioned on your website, and everyone should go and check it out because it is fantastic. One of the ones that I was really drawn to and I really loved seeing there was around humble leadership. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I think we all expect leaders to take the heat
Mm,
when they need to. They shouldn't be blaming others. If you walk into any business, whether it's a $1 billion business or a family owned business, and it's just mom and pop shop type situation, if there are things that are not working or there is bad service or whatever you want to call it,
mm,
you can really only blame the leadership. And a lot of people will say, no, oh, no, it's the manager of the store. Well, the manager of the store reports into the regional manager who reports into the CEO or whatever, right? Like it
sure.
eventually goes to the CEO. Whatever's going on is not trickling down and getting to the people on the ground. The training is not being done, and
Mm,
someone's not checking that training because they're not being told to check it. And there's no process set up for it. So you really can look to the C suite and look to how they are really running the show. I think they should be taking the heat and they should be looking at their business. They should be in the business and making sure they know what's working and what's not working. But the humble leadership, it should be about celebrating the people, celebrating the
yeah.
brand, celebrating the company, celebrating clients. It shouldn't be about winning awards and getting more airtime on the TV or whatever it is. I think there are some CEOs that do that very well and they actually help to build the
Yeah.
brand. But there's a moment for it. So I think humble leadership, I think we can all think of someone we know who's humble and who puts forward those types of qualities and why we like them. Definitely on a board, it's the same thing. It's people who you don't need to shout about your own achievements and your own qualifications. You really should be mentoring and coaching the group around you to get them to be the best they can be
Mm.
as well.
Of the values that are there any in particular that you think get overlooked or more important than others that people should be thinking about?
Well, there is one actually that for board members specifically. So if you're on a board, a fiduciary board, a board of directors, your role is a role of oversight. You're meant to be overseeing the leadership team, making sure that they're making good decisions because you're elected by shareholders and stakeholders, essentially, or just shareholders in some cases. And so your responsibility is to make sure that that leadership team does a good job. But you have to make sure you don't get involved in the day to day, or you don't get too involved. So there's a difference between governing and doing. A lot of people come to me and they say, "Oh, I'm a doer." And I say, "Well, that's not going to work for boards. They don't want doers." Sure, you've done it. I can imagine if you've been a CEO, CFO, or a CTO, or even a VP, sure you've done it. That's for sure, because you wouldn't have got there otherwise. But a board doesn't want you to do the work. And in fact, if you're a CEO and one of your board members keeps saying, "Hey, why don't I sit with all your employees and I'll do this? And why don't I create a training program for you? And why don't I?" I mean, this is too much. That's not their role. They're overstepping the mark. So this ability to be able to draw a line between governance and leadership and not step over that line is actually very tough for first-time board members. So I would say really keep that in mind, especially nonprofits. And for those of you who are listening who are on nonprofits, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's like you can easily jump in and say, "I'll help. Let me do the work. I'll do it." You've really got to be to perhaps help the employees and coach them on how to do the work.
So much more of an advisory role then.
100%. Yeah. The minute you start to overstep is when the CEO's going to really not appreciate you being there. And that's when you're going to lose your board role.
Yeah. And you talked about non-profit and rules with boards and trustees and non-executive directors in a lot of the podcasts that you talk about. Can you talk about any differences between a non-profit board role versus a company board role? The things that people need to be considering between the different two?
Yeah, there are some fundamental differences. If you looked at the agendas of a non-profit board and you looked at the board agenda of a corporate board, they look very different. For one, a non-profit is solely focused on money coming in through sponsorships, donations, grants from the government, and then of course money going straight back out to support the cause. So whether it's, let's say it's after school programs for kids, it's paying the staff, it's paying their rent, all of the general expenses that exist. Generally, they don't have a very large headcount. They try to keep the number of people as low as possible. They try to ramp up volunteers or part-timers or fractional type people because it just helps to save money. But that's obviously some nonprofits. They have thousands of people working there. Some of the larger ones, of course. Those are predominantly what they are concerned about. Whereas when you have a for-profit business, the shareholders, the people who've put money into the business to see it grow, are going to be in your ear as a board member. They might even be sitting on the board with you, right? They're going to be in your ear saying, "We want to see this to be a profitable investment." It's like basically buying a house and then letting it rot for 5 years and then expecting to get more money when you sell it, right?
Expecting a
You
return.
don't do that. Yeah, you buy a house and you maintain it so that in 5 years' time, hopefully you make a profit. Someone wants to buy it. So it's the same thing. You have to make sure that your investment is well maintained and well looked after. You want to make sure that the culture, the people, how are we working with clients? You don't really have a client at a nonprofit, although a lot of people would argue a client is a sponsor, right? Like that's a client, or the board, because they donate. So there's a lot more technology that needs to be invested in a corporation. Some nonprofits do a lot of that, others don't. But I would say there's more of a competitive feel to a corporation. So you have to always be looking over your shoulder. And then, of course, you have a lot of complexities with human capital at a corporation, because you probably will generally have more people. You could have people abroad that you might be working with, sort of same as a nonprofit. But again, this is just my experience. I've seen a lot of volunteers and things like that. It's not really paid employees all the time. So you have to really think that the perspective of vision is very different in both of those. In the corporation, you're looking to either its dividends or its profit. You want to be giving your investors their money back and more, and your investors are on your back, right? So there's a lot more to deal with. So the agendas look very different. You have different committees and all sorts of things. So just because of the ownership structure and the way that the business operates, you're just going to get a very different field. Now, I work with a lot of people who come out of nonprofits and want to switch and go to corporations. One of the biggest challenges that they face is creating the right language around how to talk like a corporate board director versus like a non-exec at a nonprofit, because it's not about mission. It's not about cause. There are certain language terms you don't want to use. A corporation, how can you help me grow my company? That's effectively what they want to do, is grow the company. They want to transform the company. They need you to mitigate risk to grow the company. It's always to grow the business. And so you really have to change your language and talk about how you've grown businesses in the past versus, hey, these are all the great causes that I support and these are all the good things that I've done in my career. So it's a big shift.
Yeah. Wow. How do you spot the right person? Is there a right person? Does that exist? Are they exceptionally different depending on what the need of that organization is?
Yeah, so every time a board is looking for a new board member, they will do some sort of skills gap analysis or a matrix, and they will figure that out based on what their strategic plan is. So if they have a strategic plan set out for the next 2 years or 1 year, they'll say, who do we need on our board to help guide us through whatever it is that we're doing? And so they will identify the right person in terms of what skills they need. But at the end of the day, the one thing that really matters is fit. And fit is, are you going to fit in with the group that already exists? And that doesn't mean, are you going to be buddies with everyone? No. It doesn't mean, are you going to just vote where everybody else votes? No. What it means is, do you have the right qualities and attributes to be able to collaborate with people? Or are you the kind of person who just sort of punches their fist on the table and says it's my way or the highway? Those types of people usually don't last very long on boards, because you really have to take into consideration everyone's opinions and views, and you have to be a little bit more widespread and more open to ideas and come to an agreement, even if it's not necessarily your own, but it has to be in the best interest of shareholders and stakeholders, right? You're always thinking about them. It's not about you. So I would say that fit is what it comes down to. A lot of people I work with, they're going on these interviews and maybe they're not getting chosen. And they're like, I have what it takes. I have the right background. I don't know what happened. I'm like, it came down to fit. They thought the other person was a better fit. You don't need to change anything. You have to be yourself. But you need to be aware that that's a major, major piece of why board members are chosen. It's so that they will come into the group, provide a diverse opinion on things, but at the end of the day, be able to work and collaborate with everyone to come to an outcome that makes the business profitable, or the nonprofit do good work in the community. So it's all about that end goal.
Interesting. You talk about fit. That's a lot about personal brand then, isn't it? It's about who you are, what you represent, what's your style. Can you tell us a little bit about the importance of personal branding?
Yeah. People think of personal brand, they think, oh, my LinkedIn or how I look in my photo. Actually, it's every single interaction that you have with people. That's your personal brand, because I'll remember you if every time I see you, you have great ideas, you are the type of person I want to hang around with, you seem like a good person, you seem to have good morals and a good moral compass, you present well, you have executive presence, that's a major piece, and you disagree agreeably. You have a way, there are some people that just have a good way of challenging someone on a topic, but without attacking. There's a big difference. And so I think it's every single interaction. And I'll tell you, I have people that jump on Zooms. I'm just on my way, to the store or the gym. Sure, they're showing up to me. It doesn't really matter. But, they might show up to just a friend who might have just heard about a board opportunity. And every time I see you, you don't look put together. You're a bit flustered, or you seem to be complaining about things all the time. I might ask someone else. So every single interact, it's not the one time, the one LinkedIn post, the one picture. It's actually how you operate on a day-to-day. So every little counts.
Yeah, amazing. And we talk a lot about, it's all about your network. And it feels like that is such a powerful thing to take with you throughout your career, not just at the beginning, because those relationships that you can build along the way, those smaller moments actually can have a really big impact.
Yeah. Every time I give presentations to younger people, I go, there's one thing you're going to walk away with today. You have one side hustle and it's for the rest of your life. And they're thinking, oh, what's that? It's to build your network. And they're all like, oh, and I'm like, trust me, you'll thank me one day. And it's true. You will thank me one day when you're in your 40s or your 50s or your 60s and you have this phenomenal network that you can call on or ask questions or even just seek out help from. If you've built a great reputation and you've been consistent over the years, we all have bad times. I'm not suggesting that's,
of course.
you might get laid off or you might be out of work for a while or you may have made some mistakes along the way. You can recover from that. It's not that hard. But I think if you continue to build those relationships and nurture them over a period of time, it really does help. Yes. So relationships matter. I say there are two things that you need to build a board career. 2 R's, reputation and relationships. If you have those two things and you're building those two things, a great reputation and great relationships, you will have no problem getting on a board in the future. So that's like the ripple impact that happens along the way, is that you slowly build those relationships and you slowly build a reputation. It doesn't happen overnight, but it does pay back later on.
Yeah, and the long-term impact of that as well, and the steps that you take along the journey that actually leads you to where you need to be. You've given so many gems of advice already, but what advice would you give to someone who is on the edge of making a decision, of someone who's nervous of making a bold move, whether that's in a boardroom or not? What advice would you give them?
I like taking risks. I think everyone has a different risk profile for their own life and for their business, but I enjoy taking risks and I feel like it makes me feel alive, when I'm like, oh, this is exciting, like it's time to ramp up. It's like the adrenaline almost, right? The pumps. So maybe why I do the long distance racing too.
I
But
was
anyway,
going to say there's a lot of endurance sport coming along here as well.
but yeah, I'm a bit more of a risk taker, so I like to do it and I'm not afraid of failure, but in certain areas, not all. So I would say, what's your risk profile? What is the worst case scenario? How bad is that? You really have to think through the worst case scenario and think, can I handle it? Now, the majority of the time, because we're so determined, we're going to avoid that worst case scenario anyway. So the chances of us succeeding are probably pretty high. And then talk to people, get help. And the other thing is, most of the time we worry about things that what other people will think of us, and no one's thinking of us. No one cares. Like really no one cares. And everyone's just trying to get on with their own stuff. We're all busy doing our own lives. And so getting caught up in what other people think, it's probably all in your head. I would definitely ask the question though, what's the worst case scenario? Can I handle it? And then start to build on.
Yeah, and take the risk. I love that. So we're calling our wonderful guests, like yourself, wave makers, because clearly you've been making waves. What advice would you give to aspiring wave makers and people looking to get into a board role?
Yeah, I think the first step is really figuring out what kind of board you should join. That's a conversation I can definitely have with people. You go to my website and you do the contact page. It's like a 15-minute meeting, and I can literally in 15 minutes, I will tell you what kind of boards you should be going after and whether the boards you're going after at the moment are the right ones. If you're struggling, it's probably likely that they're not. So I can definitely help with that. So that's really the first step. And then after that, it's what you say and how you say it. What's your value proposition pitch? And then, of course, making sure you are talking to the right people, and who are the right people. I just don't know. We have to figure that out. So I do consultations all day with people, just helping them figure out where they want to go next. I do one-to-one sessions with people. I also have some online courses that are launching pretty soon as well. So I'll be talking about those on my website. So look out for that.
Amazing. Well, Naomi Kent, thank you so much for taking us into the world of your ripples. From endurance sport to board roles, you've talked about ripples, resilience, relationships, and redefining success. And your journey reminds us that powerful shifts can happen even just from saying yes and putting your hand up and getting on that flight and moving countries and pushing yourself and challenging yourself and asking, how much risk am I willing to take, and can I raise that bar just a little bit higher? Thank you so much for your time. I'm sure it has sparked a lot of ideas and ripples in other people, so thank you for that. For everyone listening, keep chasing your curiosity and stay bold in your choices, because you never know the ripple impact of small moments. That is a wrap for this Ripple episode. Tune in weekly for more bold voices and inspiring wave makers like Naomi. I'm Laura Barber. This is the Ripple Impact. Naomi, thank you so much. It's been wonderful as always. We will see you next week. Thank you,
Laura. Thanks so much.
Naomi. Bye-bye.
Right.